In the wake of Dune Part 2's success, the franchise has become a modern cultural phenomenon. People love Dune, including myself. However, it feels like Dune Part 1, the first part of the new Villeneuve trilogy, is the underappreciated older brother to Dune Part 2's more action-packed nature. As a result, I wanted to appreciate its greatness and encourage more people, especially those who saw Dune Part 2 but haven't seen Dune Part 1, or who saw it a while ago, give it another try. Of course, spoilers for both Dune movies up ahead. Dune Part 1 sets up the Dune universe in a stunning way. From the wide panorama shots to the scenes in space showing the grand scale of the planets compared to the tiny spaceships, the attention to detail in the visual department is nothing to scoff at. Furthermore, the story is told intelligently through the visuals and cinematography rather than over-relying on telling us through words how to feel or what to think of the world. For instance, when Paul is training with Gurney, the shields are shown in a way that allows the audience to instantly understand that they're force fields that block projectiles from harming you. You don't need to be told what a shield is, you're just meant to experience it visually. Telling too much without showing can ruin the experience of a movie, as seen with the 1984 Dune. Not to throw shade at David Lynch, but it is true. However, Denis Villeneuve's Dune allows for the action in the script to tell the audience the important in-world details through the visuals. Visual storytelling is also used to characterize the main characters. For instance, in the scene where Mohaim summons Paul and Jessica, Jessica is shown to be small in comparison to the door and the room since she fears Mohaim. Meanwhile, the camera zooms in on Paul to show his own self-perceived arrogance and grandness when facing Mohaim, a character or person he doesn't really know. He's the young, arrogant Duke's son who sees himself as someone important, so he doesn't care about some random lady from across the universe. Meanwhile, Jessica understands the implications of the Bene Gesserit's head coming to visit them on their home planet, for Mohaim is really the only person who can order Jessica around even in her own home, much to Paul's dismay. In addition, during the Gom Jabbar scene, we can see Paul's micro-expressions shift from discomfort with a tint of arrogant and flaunting to appear more composed than he is, to pure pain, to anger and hatred towards Mohaim. As his pain progresses, so do his visions of the future, as he feels literally the holy war spreading like an unquenchable fire, burning in the palm of his hand, foreshadowing the eventual future of the jihad that he and Jessica lead against the universe. Another scene that employs visual storytelling is the decree for House Atreides to rule over Arrakis. The part I want to emphasize is when Duke Leto Atreides stamps the seal on the decree. We can see his hand subtly shaking, showing us that he's scared of something. What does he fear? What does the leader, the confident Duke of a kingdom, fear? Most likely he fears some kind of danger that's ahead. Of course, Leto accepts the decree since he's not a coward, but he still has to navigate through these waters in order to see what can be a threat. What can he fear in order to see what threats are ahead, so that he can protect his people and most importantly his son, his heir, from any potential dangers. It's scenes and storytelling like this that take so much care, planning, and attention to detail for those who seek out these details that are only a fraction of a bigger whole that makes this movie so great. On the topic of characters, I want to delve into the acting and performances in the movie, which are nothing short of phenomenal. As previously stated, Paul's micro-expressions that constantly shift when he's undergoing the Gom Jabbar is a testament to Timothée Chalamet's extreme skill as an actor. His ability to convey so many complex emotions in such a short duration of time by only using micro-expressions is fantastic. Also, his portrayal of Paul's anger and internal fear of becoming a monster is amazing. It's not super common for protagonists or heroes to have these sudden outbursts of anger that are pent up from so much rage, stress, grief, and fear, but it is an accurate way of showing anger, especially for a tragic character whom we can sympathize with like Paul. You truly do have to feel for him, as he's done nothing wrong up to that point. He never chose to be a messiah or the one. He never wanted to be the Lisan al-Gaib or the Kwisatz Haderach. Now, all of this burden is placed on his shoulders for the rest of his life because he was forced into it, because he was a pawn of other people's political game. To add on top of that burden, his father just died and his family lost everything. Their army, their home, their status, everything that belonged to them was lost in one swoop by both the Harkonnens and the Sardakar's secret attack on Arrakis. In addition, I do think that Rebecca Ferguson does not receive enough love for her perfect portrayal of Lady Jessica, for she's able to convey essentially two sides of one person and one character. She's able to portray the serious Bene Gesserit who's dedicated and loyal to her cause of trying to create the Kwisatz Haderach, and the worried, anxious mother who constantly fears for her son's life. The switch between these two sides of Jessica is so seamless and natural that it ultimately builds her character as a whole. We see Jessica as someone who presents herself as more calm, composed, and maybe even a little aggressive than she truly is, as she hides a lot of anxiety and fear within her and constantly has to reassure herself with the Bene Gesserit saying, "Fear is the mind killer." These aspects humanize her in contrast to Mother Mohaim, who acts and believes herself to be above humanity, who dehumanizes others and sees them as pure animals who succumb to their instincts. The next character I wish to analyze is Duke Leto Atreides. I think Oscar Isaac does a fantastic job at portraying Leto. It's definitely his best role in my eyes, although my only points of reference for his acting are the Star Wars sequels, Ex Machina, and Moon Knight. Regardless, he brings a passionate yet benevolent power to the character of Leto. He has the demeanor of a confident, powerful leader, yet he can also be a humble father simultaneously. In a way, his presence contrasts that of Jessica's, for he is the calm, rational, and leader-like father figure for Paul to look up to. While Jessica is more anxious, obsessive, religious, but she is more affectionate towards Paul. Leto is an intelligent man who, as previously mentioned, fears the worst on Arrakis. And he is right to fear the worst because he knows that there's a trick. He knows that the Emperor is tricking him and trying to manipulate him into coming to Arrakis in order to be vulnerable, in order to be attacked. That is why he is so concerned with desert power, with trying to accumulate as much power in a short amount of time so that when the time comes, he and his men are able to fight. In a sense, the harsh and brutal nature of Arrakis can be a parallel or a metaphor for the harsh and brutal nature of the Imperium itself, and how it's full of literal worms or snakes that are willing to betray you at any moment and consume you alive. Back to Leto though, he is not a coward. He doesn't cower away in the face of fear. He may hide his fear in a similar way to Jessica, but he doesn't let his fear consume him. He's fully willing to lay down his life for his people and for the greater good no matter what. He nearly sacrificed himself to save some spice miners from the sandworm early on in the film, showing his dedication to his people no matter their rank or role in his fiefdom. In addition, when he was given the poison tooth by Dr. Yue, he refused to hesitate when given the opportunity to assassinate both the Baron and his underlings in the throne room of Arrakeen. It's a beautifully tragic scene that massively changes the plot. Now that Arrakis has lost its patriarch and Paul is MIA, the Harkonnens can take over Arrakis once again and continue their genocidal crusade against the Fremen. Overall, I think Leto is an underrated character and probably my favorite of the franchise besides Paul himself, of whom we see the best of in Part 2 and hopefully in Messiah. Speaking of the Baron, he is the final character I'll analyze today. The Baron is one of the most archetypal yet effective villains. He's simple, straightforward, and pure evil. He has no other motivations other than lust for power, for his ambitions to become emperor trump anything and everything else for him. He plots, schemes, betrays, and uses everyone around him in order to get what he wants in a Machiavellian fashion. Also, I think Stellan Skarsgård brings upon an almost monstrous look and feel to him, especially with his voice and his sheer presence. In almost every way possible, he resembles a gargantuan monster more than a human being, which I find to be a great choice as it shows that this is a man who looked into the abyss and chose to transform into the abyss of his own creation. This makes him a terrifying force not only to reckon with, but just to look at. And without him, we wouldn't have Dune, so you have to appreciate that as well. Finally, the score and music in this film is nothing short of fantastic. Hans Zimmer pulls no punches in making Arrakis feel otherworldly with the music. It's odd, it's eccentric, yet fitting of such a grand film. The mix of classical orchestral instruments with the electrical and digital instruments just blends so well together, and it's kind of difficult to describe. I mean, they even use bagpipes for Christ's sake, and these bagpipes actually do fit the feel of Caladan and the Atreides. Furthermore, the deep guttural vocals of Gadi Prime juxtaposes the intense passionate vocals of Arrakis, which also characterizes the respective peoples of each planet. The Harkonnens sound and feel monstrous, totalitarian, and imposing, while the Fremen sound diverse, passionate, and loving, almost as if they passionately fight to protect their own home and their planet from the monstrous invaders. At least that's how I interpret it. Overall, Dune Part 1 is an underappreciated masterpiece that's often overlooked for being slow or not as action-packed as Part 2. While Part 2 is great, it is obviously a sequel, so it jumps straight into the action and cuts away at the fluff. While Part 1 spoon-feeds you some fluff that's better for your understanding and appreciation, I think you can't fully appreciate Part 2 without having seen Part 1 and absorbing the sheer grandeur of it. That's all for now, see you later.